Hey y'all, and welcome to The Wannabe Author. I'm Taryn, a writer figuring out how to turn my publishing dream into reality, one chaotic step at a time. This is the place where we talk books, writing struggles, mental health, and everything in between. Whether you're a writer, a reader, or just curious about the process, I am so glad you're here. Let's jump in. Hey y'all, and welcome back to The Wannabe Author. I'm your host, Taryn Christine, and in today's episode, I got to sit down with a truly special guest. This guest is the author of Difficult Girls, a YA thriller debut about a teen girl's attempt at social reinvention that takes a deadly turn when a coworker disappears, and she learns she may have been the last person to see the missing girl. In this episode, I get to sit down with this author and hear her unique and truly inspirational journey to publication. We get to hear about her time in ghostwriting, the struggles in combating life and its obstacles, and overcoming the feelings of imposter syndrome. This author did a lot in teaching me of never giving up and doing everything you can to make your dream a reality. I was beyond inspired by this author, and I know that you will be too. It is my absolute honor to introduce you all to Veronica Bane. Veronica, hi, welcome to The Wannabe Author.
So good to be here.
I'm
Also,
so
I
excited
apologize.
to have you.
Yeah. If you see a tail, that's my cat. So apologies.
No, we love it. We love having extra guests here on the podcast.
You would have it no other.
Exactly. Okay, before we really dig into your journey and everything, I always love to ask my guests, what are you currently reading?
I am currently reading the sequel to Legendborn. I'm reading Bloodmarked. So I know I'm a little late. I'm a little late to the party, but I'm very much enjoying myself.
No, I'm later than you. I've been needing to pick up that book because it looks so interesting, but I just drowning a little.
Yeah, I feel I have to have significant runway before I can start a fantasy, especially a fantasy that I know is going to really kind of grab me and hold on. And so I've been on deadline and it's been really busy. So that's been kind of my treat that I've been waiting for, is to be able to start a fantasy, because I know I'm just going to go through the trilogy really quickly. So I wanted to make sure I had the space to be able to do that.
Love that. What am I currently reading? Oh, I'm currently reading Storyteller by Jodi Picoult. Have you read that?
I have not, but I love her work. So
I think I think this is my second book of hers that I've read, and I really love the way she just puts all the stories together. It's really fantastic. Okay.
I was going to ask, what are you enjoying about it? But then you answered the question. We were communicating right here.
We're on the same wavelength here. Okay. Veronica, it is such an exciting opportunity for me to sit and chat with you today, because I've been listening to your journey, what you have such a unique journey, and I've been in the industry for a few years now, despite your debut coming out this year. So I'm very excited for the listeners to really understand your background and everything. So let's jump into this. My first question for you is, what brought you to the point that you finally sat down and said, I'm going to write this book and I'm going to publish it?
So I'm actually going to talk about the books that came before this particular book, because I think to understand its journey, you need a little bit of context. So I started pursuing traditional publishing, getting an agent about 10 years ago. I queried that book, I secured my agent, and then I did what we're told to do. I started writing another book while I was with that agent, and we got really, really close with that first book. We got some revise and resubmits, but ultimately it was on submission for a minute. And while it was on submission, I finished that second book, and I loved that second book. It was kind of everything I wanted. It was magical. It was based on or inspired by a movie that I loved, and everything, all the pieces just felt like they clicked. And so even though the other book wasn't kind of popping off on sub, I felt confident. I was like, okay, this second book. And then two things happened in quick succession. My agent left the business and my mom passed away suddenly. And I had a real, how am I going to keep doing this? Especially because grief really tore me apart and made me question a lot of things. And I wasn't sure that I could do it, to be honest. But I had this second book that I really loved, and I thought, you know what, it's done. I can jump back in the query trenches and we'll see what happens. And I found my agent and my current agent, and she loved that second book. I loved that second book. And we went out with it and we got incredibly close. An editor loved it and was even posting about how much they loved it. And I could connect the dots because the way they were describing it, I was like, that's my book. And which I think is every author just wants to see someone gushing publicly about their book. And the other editors at the big five that they were at loved it. And then they took it to acquisitions, and finance and marketing said this type of book doesn't sell. And I was heartbroken yet again. But and honestly, that was where I was like, okay, I pushed through. Like I pushed through grief. I queried this book. I got an agent again. Like I did the things that people say are really hard to do, and I felt like I kind of did everything right. And then it just didn't work out. And that book to this day I feel is one of the best things I've ever written. And so I was like, how am I now feeling like a broken human being going to write something when I feel like I've kind of lost the ability to do so? But it may sound cheesy, but I knew my mom would have been like, absolutely not. Like I did not pay for you to go get a creative writing degree for you to give up. And so I really dragged myself through the pits of despair, of grief, and I decided I wanted to write a thriller inspired by the theme park that I worked at as a kid and or a teenager. I was not child labor. But but I when I was at that theme park, I was a princess face character and an usher, and I just thought, that feels like it would make for a really fun murder mystery. And but when I wrote it, it was this really unwieldy, gnarled, raw thing. One of the characters had lost her mom, so clearly I was doing quite a bit of therapy through that book. And so when I finished it, it just was this strange, unwieldy thing, and it was not going to be a book. And my agent and I agreed that, it wasn't the thing. So I wrote another book. I wrote many other books. And we just kept hitting walls. And so I told my agent that I just wanted to write anything. I was like, just find ways for me to write. I don't care if I'm writing listicles. I don't care. I just want to write. And she ended up finding me a ghostwriting job. And she was like, do you want to try this? And I said, yes, I just want to be paid to write, and I want to write stories, and I just want to be in this business. And then one ghostwriting job turned into several ghostwriting jobs until I was doing that as basically my second job to my day job. And after enough ghostwriting experiences, I ended up looking at kind of some of my dream editors and looked at one dream editor in particular, and I looked back at that book, that strange thing I wrote after grief, and I was like, I think she would love this. And I think I finally have the skill to kind of put this book where it needs to be. And so I revised that weird thriller book, and I told my agent, I think this is the time, and I think this is the editor. And we sent it to her, and she loved it and she bought it. And so that book I wrote in 2017, but it is now going to be my debut that comes out this year.
Okay.
Sorry, that was quite a journey.
No, that was beautiful. I knew the surface level, of course, just from following you and stuff, but there's so always, obviously we only see so much through social media and stuff, but there's just so much depth to your journey and emotion. And also, like, I'm just absolutely inspired because that was awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Okay.
Of course.
Now getting into the sorry, I'm like, that was got me emotional. I've never been
No,
emotional on here.
It has been interesting to see. I'm so proud of the other debuts, and I'm particularly proud of those of us who have stuck around when the journey wasn't. I don't think anyone's journey is instant, but there are definitely journeys that feel a bit more instant than mine has been. And one of the other debuts, Jenny Howell had said, we were talking about this process, and she said she told herself, just be a cockroach, just like stick around until it works out. And that is kind of what I feel like I did. I just said I can't imagine doing anything else, so I'm just going to keep trying different ways until, I find the way in.
I love it. Love it. That is that is an amazing origin story. Okay. Now, let's get into kind of the craft. You've been writing obviously for a really long time. Do you have any writing routines? Are you a pantser, a plotter? Kind of paint the picture of what it looks like when you get into the groove of writing.
I am definitely a plotter, but I'm a plotter where I feel that the outline gives me the freedom that I need to play. And I usually, for each book when I write it, especially because most of my books, even though Difficult Girls is now one point of view, it started as three. And so when I have multiple point of views that I have to balance, I like to get index cards that are different colors and write the character's name at the top and what happens in the chapter. And then I feel like my house looks like that I forget his last name, but Charlie, where he's like got the board behind him
Yes.
and it looks a little unhinged. I feel like that's my living room as I plot these books. But I like the cards because I like to be able to move around. And when I'm on deadline or trying to get myself to write really quickly, I like to be able to just take a card and write what's on that card. And that's kind of how I work through it. But I will say, when I'm ghostwriting, it's somebody else's outline. And so I just am following what they've told me to write. And I've tried to take a little bit of that into my normal writing because when I'm ghostwriting, I don't second guess the outline. I'm like, that's what they told me to write. So I'm just going to write it. Whereas with my own stuff, I feel like you get into a scene and you start questioning, wait, should this have gone sooner? Or should this be happening? And then you're not able to write as quickly. But usually outlines help me write pretty quickly, which I really need because I do have a day job and I have to squeeze writing into these little pockets of time. But one of the biggest writing routines that I have, I would say, is having an accountability buddy and body doubling, where I meet a friend to write. Usually, Ivy Marie, who is also a debut in July, we meet at a coffee shop and we give ourselves 25 minutes to write and then 5 minutes to yap and then 25 minutes to write. And I really feel like, oh, I have to be writing because she's writing. And if she's writing and I'm over here just doom scrolling, that's going to be embarrassing for me at the end. And so there is a little bit of that kind of motivation. And I think the reason those routines honestly are helpful for me is I do have ADHD as well. And it is all about tricking my brain into not waiting until the last minute to write things because even though that is my default setting, it is certainly not healthy for a regular writing practice.
Love that. I love seeing yours and Issa's videos and stuff. Y'all are just the most fun, my favorite little author duo. I love it.
Well, I mean, I am so grateful for her and to have somebody that is going through it in such a similar way in that we are both at the same publisher, we're both at the same imprint, our books both come out in July. And so it really is, when we were getting cover sketches, we were kind of only a few weeks apart and that was really exciting and it's really nice to have someone to go, is this how it's supposed to happen? Is this what's going on? And also just to flail about the number of times that I've told her, like, I think this is awful. And then she's read it and been like, it's great. Just stop. It's very helpful, and vice versa.
I love that so much. Okay, let's dive into your publishing journey. I would love for you to tell the listeners about your journey to publication and what the most surprising aspect of the journey was.
Oof. Well, as I mentioned, this book started as three POVs, and I was sure it needed to be three POVs. It was actually one of the POVs I was convinced that was my hook. That was why people were going to pick up the book, not Greta's, who is my main character. It was a mysterious third POV where you didn't know who was telling it, and it was revealed later on in the book. And I was like, this is what makes the book great. And my editor, God bless her, told me, Veronica, I think you are using those other two POVs as a crutch to tease out the mystery. And the mystery really needs to unfold with Greta, and she is your hook. And I think that Greta is very much a difficult girl, and she reminds me a lot of teen me. She is a lot for a lot of people, and I really wanted to show a girl who is all in on a lot of things, is naive, is just kind of figuring out her place in the world, and she does it in a really messy way. And I was really nervous about it being fully her book. And I came up with a way where I was like, no, I'm going to keep those two POVs, but here's how I'm going to do it. And my editor, Krista, said, okay, but I want you to write the whole book in this revision from just Greta's point of view, where the mystery unfolds through her point of view. And then you can go in and add in those other characters. And then that way you'll be sure that the mystery unfolds, but then you get to add in the other characters. And I said, fine. And I went forward and I did that, and then I got to the end to add in those other two characters back in, and I was like, "Ah, she's right. It doesn't need them." And I was so mad. I was so mad. And but I was also so happy because when I read the book back, I was like, "Man, it really works without them." And I was so proud of where the book was at in that moment and how it flowed. But yeah, I was a little I was a little annoyed at how great my editor is, and that she definitely saw it through. and and I am, like I said, I have always loved Greta, but I was scared to really let it be her story completely, and that was absolutely the right move, and I'm glad that I did it.
Love that. That's so interesting to see just how much, like, obviously your story is the same, but like how much it changed. I love seeing those behind the scenes of creating the story and having the help of an editor and everything. But that's funny. Love that. Okay. What do you wish someone would have told you when you were like an aspiring author? You know, you really got into just how hard of, like, you were hit with a lot of things. And is there something you wish somebody would have told you as you were trying to keep going and achieve this dream?
Honestly, I wish someone would have said failure isn't the end, because every time I hit a place of failure, it really did feel like the end. And also to not be afraid of the word failure. I feel like, especially for querying writers, I think people really try to say it's not a failure. It's just, you just need one yes, and all of these no's are just, steps along the way, which is true. But also, there are going to be books, at least for me, that fail. They fail to get you an agent, they fail to get you a book deal. That doesn't mean that you can't turn that failure into a win later on. I mean, I essentially resurrected the book that became my debut, and I'm so grateful that, I had the ability to be like, this is not for right now, and that's okay. But I think if I had been afraid of failure to the extent that I couldn't call it what it was, I wouldn't have been able to move forward. I would have held on to that book and just kept tinkering on it at a time when I didn't have the skills to do it. And I do see, other writers, I feel like kind of get in their own way where they become so focused on making this project perfect, that this project, they just need to make it work, and they're afraid to start a new one. And I just think you have so many stories in you, And you won't know that until you let go of the other story. And if you keep kind of spinning the wheels on that one story that you have, you're not letting yourself be open to the other stories that want to inhabit you.
Veronica.
Made slightly perhaps less eloquent by my cat's tail whipping back and forth as I
I
tried
think
to.
I think that makes it even more perfect, honestly. I love it.
I feel a little bit like one of those evil villains with their cat, except you can only see him in little bits.
Need to end it off with like a evil laugh.
Sure.
No, okay. That I know many people need to hear, but specifically me. I'm sitting here like, whew, yes, yes. Oh, that was good. Okay.
You have to trust yourself. It's scary to trust yourself though, to because I say you have a lot of stories in you, and I know there are plenty of writers who are like, what if I don't? What if this is the only story? And I don't believe that might be true for some people, but I really do feel you won't know until you break up temporarily with the book that you're working on. You like let it go live its college life. Like let it go try a few majors on its own and then come back to it when you're both in a better space.
Yes, I think that's fantastic advice. Now, you've kind of touched on this, but I'd love to get deeper into, have you ever thought about giving up? And if so, what kept you going specifically?
I did have someone leave an Instagram comment on one of my videos, and they said, "Are you worried that your debut is going to be a miserable flop after having such success ghostwriting for other people?" And I was like, geez, did I I mean, yeah, like that's I think one of the biggest fears as an author is that these projects that we care about aren't going to find our readers. And I think when you're getting rejections and especially as many close calls as I feel like I got, it becomes, maybe this isn't going to happen for me. And especially with ghostwriting, it was a really strange experience because I would have, a project on sub that, as I mentioned, wasn't selling. And then I'd have a ghostwriting project that was on billboards and talk shows. And so I would look at that and I would be like, okay, so it's not my writing, but is it me? Like, am I just the part that is not marketable, publishable, whatever it is? And I didn't actually believe that, but I have to be honest and say I had that feeling because here I had the evidence that my writing was good enough, but I didn't seem to be good enough. And I don't think I thought of giving up, honestly, but I definitely had some fairly intense crying sessions of just how long is this going to take, and do I have the stamina to keep going? So I don't think I ever honestly really considered throwing in the towel, but I had some dark nights of the soul, if you will.
Absolutely. How do you like get out of that mindset? Because
How do you get out of the soul?
yeah,
Well, honestly, lots of cuddling and reading with these animals that always puts things in perspective because also they have expensive pet food, so they need to be paid for. So the writing kind of has to come together. But honestly, I think just I kept thinking about this is something I've wanted to do since I was 7. I don't really know a reality in which I don't do it. And once I started ghostwriting, I just had to tell myself it's just going to take the right project at the right time. But I will say also that advocating for myself was huge and going to my agent and saying, "Hey, this project, I think it's time." And thankfully having a good enough team and a good enough agent to say like, okay, let's try was crucial to, I think, the not giving up because I think we were willing to just bide our time and keep working while I was doing that, but just wait for the right moment and thankfully seize it when it came along.
Absolutely love that. Well, you've inspired me in so many ways. All right. We're coming up on the more lighter questions, but outside of being an author, what is a fun fact about you that not a lot of people know?
Oh, I'm trying to think. I feel like this is when they ask about your hobbies, and when you have essentially two full-time jobs, you're like, what are hobbies
Yeah.
besides reading? I would say, well, so I worked at a theme park as an usher and as a princess, but while I was there was a show, a musical show that I was an usher for, and I would watch it every single day, and they had auditions. I was a very brave teenager. I like to think that I was a nerd, but I did have moments of bravery. And I was like, I'm going to audition. I am not musical. I am not someone who I would say I have fairly decent rhythm, which might be surprising, but I would say I have fairly decent rhythm, but I don't have a great voice, but I was like, I think I could do that, and more that I just wanted to try, and so I tried. I auditioned, and they were very sweet. They were like, "We think you were fine, but we're gonna keep you at Usher," which I thought was fair, and being a face character. But then there was one day when a performer called in sick and they could not find anybody. And they were like, Veronica, this is a bit of a bizarre request, but would you jump in and be that character since you auditioned for them? And since I had watched the show every day, I knew the lines. And so I said, sure. And so I had to learn the choreography really quickly that morning. And I had to sing, which apologies to the audience that day. Thankfully, it was the character who did not sing a ton, but I did. I jumped in and I did all. I think it was 4 or 5 shows that day, and I think I did a pretty good job. And there was another day when a performer called in sick, and they were like, "Veronica, can you step up?" And I did. And so I think that most people don't know I had a brief 2 day stint as a full musical performer at a theme park. So, yeah.
That is fabulous.
Yep. So, but again, apologies to the ears of those in the audience. I don't think I was living up to the expectations of the character.
As someone who is very, very tone deaf, it makes me.
I
I just love that.
okay, but who knows? Who knows?
I bet
But
it was fabulous. I bet you did better than you thought. Okay. Are there any out of pocket genres you would like to try your hand at in writing? And when I mean out of pocket, I just mean like out of pocket either compared to what you've written before or truly, truly out of pocket.
cool. So, as a ghostwriter, I've written in a ton of genres. I have written in romance, fantasy, nonfiction, um, contemporary, just kind of done a bunch, but I I do have a strange sci-fi project that I wrote in college as a screenplay that times as of late have had me more interested in exploring that. And I started thinking, like, oh, I wonder if that could actually be a YA project. So I don't know. We'll see.
That would be cool. Okay. Do you have a favorite trope to read or write in?
I mean, I do love an enemies to lovers I mean, I think that is probably my go-to trope, but I honestly I like a mix because I say enemies to lovers and then I think about the love interest in Difficult Girls and he is as far from an enemy as one could be and I love him and I guess he's I don't know if it's a real trope but it's a trope to me but a not so secret cinnamon roll. Like I loved writing him and so I do love a not so secret cinnamon roll.
I think that's I love that trope. I'm so excited to meet your characters when your book comes out. It sounds absolutely amazing. Okay. What is next for you? Do you have any teasers of future projects or events, anything like that?
Well, I am going to be going on tour this summer for Difficult Girls, which I am so excited about. And I'm so excited to meet readers in some different cities. So stay tuned for exactly which cities. But I'm excited about that. I am working on book 2. My editor currently has my latest draft. It is another young adult thriller. It is a standalone, just like Difficult Girls is. And I also have another project, but it's under a secret pen name. So I will have 2 books out in 2026, but I will only be able to talk about one.
That's so cool, though.
It's so strange, but very exciting. And it's nice. It's because I mean, it feels very ghostwriting in that I can't talk about it, but it's still mine.
Yes, absolutely. Well, this has been truly a treat for me, and I know it will be for the listeners, because Veronica, you're just such an inspiration. Like that whole, what is it, the cockroach analogy? I hate saying cockroach because cockroaches are gross. But
I cannot take credit. That is Jenny all the way. You should absolutely go read her book, Boys with Sharp Teeth. It's fantastic, but that is Jenny all the way.
I love it. Well, you embody just like the not giving up, just keep going, never letting it take you down. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. Seriously, I've learned so much. I'm truly looking forward to your book and what you have coming up next. But thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me. I watch all of your videos. I'm so excited for your own journey. I'm so excited for this podcast. You are a natural voice and I'm very excited to follow you wherever you go.
Thank you. Thank you. That was really nice.
It's very true.
Thank you. All right. I'll go ahead and close out with the listeners, but I'd love to chat with you for a minute afterwards if you want to stay around. But thank y'all for listening. We will see you next Thursday. Bye.